silver for cash and get top dollar, or trade it in for a new piece and get even more at Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When it's game time, Farah doesn't flinch. He's Hacker.
Talk about a fried egg. I lasted about 5 minutes out there. I said, to heck with this. I'll do this in the morning. And I don't have any inside information. The lady that did it, she got in there. She made it happen.
And he doesn't shy away from opinion.
And I do enjoy drinking cold beer at ballparks. So if that makes me a baseball fan, then I'm a diehard baseball fan.
It's Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
And a very good Monday evening to you, Jacksonville. It is Hacker After Dark, 1010XL, 92.5 FM with Aaron Williams. The Hacker Ryan Green with you. Glad you are with us. A Monday that now we can officially say the NFL Draft is next week up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The Jaguars, 11 picks overall, 4 of those selections in the top 100, and we will certainly do a lot of draft talk, not only this evening, but all week here on Hacker After Dark. The Gators spring football tour is in the rearview mirror after the orange and blue game on Saturday. I got a lot of thoughts on that. Boy, I think we got a quarterback competition. I think Aaron Philo versus Tramel Jones, that's going to go for a while into the summer months, maybe even into fall camp. I like it in some aspects. I don't like it in some others. I'll share some thoughts with you on that. Also, boy, Florida Gator recruiting. All right. We talked last Thursday, Maxwell Hiller, the 5-star plus offensive lineman from Pennsylvania, the #1 interior offensive lineman in America, commits to Florida. Then a day later, 4-star quarterback Davin Davidson, the Cardinal Mooney quarterback who led them to a state title last year. And then on Saturday, Amari Fountain, the South Carolina commit that flipped to Florida. That's a 4-star corner, a 4-star quarterback, and a 5-star offensive lineman, all for the 27 class that have all committed to John Sumrall and Florida within the last 5 days. They are what you would call on a hot streak right now in Gainesville. So we will talk not only about the orange and blue game, but a little Florida Gator recruiting as well. As I talked about with Blue there during the 2-minute drill, boy, what a Masters it was. Rory McIlroy, the last time I was with you, Friday evening, took a 6-shot lead into the final 36 holes. And I sat here and I remember saying, all right, if he goes 36 pars, if he goes into the clubhouse at 12 under, would he be okay? Would he win it? Ironically enough, he would have, right? Ironically enough, he would have, yet the way it got there was jumbled and crazy. He blows a 6-shot lead. People catch him to the point where he's down. What was he down? 2 or 3 shots at a point yesterday, only to come back on the back 9 and recapture the lead and thus win his second consecutive green jacket at Augusta National. That was terrific theater yesterday. The Masters very, very rarely disappoints on a Sunday. It was awesome. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And then I had the unfortunate task of watching my Orlando Magic. And we'll get into this later. This is not an Orlando Magic topic. This is a sports fan topic. And Jaguar fans, maybe you've been here. Gator fans, maybe you've been here. Whatever team you support, maybe you've been here. It was as embarrassed as I've ever been yesterday to be an Orlando Magic fan. And I really mean that. I'm going back. I mean, I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old the first time I ever went to see an Orlando Magic game. I'm 42 now. I have a son that's about to turn 7. Little Hack's going to be older than I was the first time I saw the Orlando Magic. This is over 3.5 decades of fandom. And yesterday, even though it turned out that they would not have gotten the 6th seed regardless, they were still going to be in the play-in. They lost home court in the play-in, losing to the Celtics last night that played their G League team. The Boston Celtics sat all of their guys. Their top 5, 6, 7 guys all sat. Orlando, we played all our best guys to the point where Desmond Bane, who started all 82 games, got rewarded. He only played 6 minutes, and then they pulled him, only to, embarrassingly enough, have to put him back in the fourth quarter. But by that point, it was too late. The G League Boston Celtics beat Orlando yesterday, and I'm just curious. You know, am I going to remain a Magic fan? Yeah, I probably will. I'm dumb enough to probably remain a fan of theirs. I'm kind of invested at this point after 36 years. But I was embarrassed to be a fan yesterday. Does that ever happen to you? I mean, you're not angry. You're not even sad. It's just embarrassing. You're embarrassed to support this team based on the product that I saw yesterday. Hit me up on the text line, designed by Lifetime Enclosures, 904-641-1010. So we got a lot to get into tonight. It was a busy weekend. It was a fun weekend, too. So Saturday, this is the great thing about Jacksonville, Florida. Saturday, I started in Jacksonville Beach. Took a little hack out there, let him play in the waves. We threw the football around a little bit, dug some holes. You know, he attempted a sandcastle. Didn't really go as planned, but he attempted it. Got seashells. Just a fun couple of hours at the beach. Ended the day on the ice with the Jacksonville Icemen down at the arena. Aaron, that's a full day. When you can start at the beach and then you can end watching hockey in downtown Jacksonville, that's the full gamut. So we did that on Saturday, and then on Sunday, yesterday, hit the park. I wanted to do everything with him prior to about 3 o'clock, because once 3 o'clock got here, I was pretty locked in to the Masters. But it was a fun weekend. Hope you guys had a fun weekend, and it's going to be a busy week here on Hacker After Dark as the NFL Draft is now next Thursday. We got a lot of guests tonight, including Rick Saratella. He of All Access Football and the NFL Draft Bible. I get Rick on every year. The NFL Draft Bible is a terrific resource. I got my hands on it this weekend. It's over like 350, 400 pages of analysis. Rick's going to join us coming up here in about 15 minutes. And we will also go to Gainesville. Towards the top of the 9 o'clock hour, Tyler Harden, Swamp 247, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He covers recruiting for Florida on Swamp 247. Like I said, John Summerall's on a hot streak on the recruiting trail. So some Gator recruiting talk. Also Justin Mello of the NFL Draft on Sports Illustrated later on tonight here on Hacker After Dark. Every night on HAD, we do kick it off with a big deal of the night. And Aaron Williams, let's do that right now.
Time now for the big deal of the night.
What's the big deal?
What is the big deal?
No, because it is a big deal.
On Hacker After Dark.
There's really a couple of big deals of the night. I'm going to begin on the college gridiron with what I saw Saturday at the Orange and Blue game. Now, it's a spring game, all right? Take it for what it is. It is a spring football game. Obviously, you're not going to decide very much as far as starters, playing time, etc., in a game in mid-April when A, games don't even start mattering for another 4.5 months, and B, you got to take into account the level of competition the defense is throwing at you. You're not going to try to hurt your own guys. You're not going to go full speed against your own guys. That's the caveat. Having said that, I think the Gators have a quarterback competition, a full-blown quarterback competition. And I didn't think that coming into the spring. I was rooting for Tramel Jones. I am a fan of Tramel Jones, obviously from his days at Mandarin. I've had him on the show a few times. I've done one-on-one interviews with him. I like Tramel Jones. And I don't know Aaron Philo. I'm excited about Aaron Philo coming with Buster Faulkner from Georgia Tech. So I was rooting for Tramel, but overall, I'm just rooting for the best man to win the job. And my thought coming in was, all right, Philo has been with Buster Faulkner for a couple of years. He knows the system. This is the guy that broke every Trevor Lawrence, or no, I shouldn't say every, but most Trevor Lawrence high school passing records in the state of Georgia. Boy, I'm kind of happy Florida got him. I still think right now, if you ask me who's the opening day starter for Florida, I would lean Philo. But man, I think Tramel Jones has complicated things in a good way. I like what I saw, not only in the orange and blue game, but what I've heard, people I've talked to that are down there, what he's done in practice, the leadership he's taken on. Tramel Jones had every opportunity to leave. He was not recruited by John Summerall. He was recruited by Billy Napier. He was recruited by the previous staff. Said, no, I'm staying. I'm a Florida Gator. Keep in mind, he was committed to Florida State forever. Goes to Florida. Could have left after last year. Did not. Stayed the course. Even when Aaron Philo comes in with Buster Faulkner. Stays the course. Going to battle it out. And yeah, you thought, all right, they can say it's a competition all they want, but let's be real here. It's Faulkner's guy. Tramel Jones wasn't recruited by this staff. We'll see. I still think some of that matters, but what I will tell you is this. I've been told, and I agree with this, that it's a lot closer now than was probably envisioned a month ago. Philo did some nice things during the spring, certainly. Tramel Jones did some nice things during the spring. You talk to somebody during one practice, they'll tell you Philo was better. You talk to that same person 2 days later at the next practice, they'll tell you Tramel Jones was better. Now, there's a saying in football, and I'm sure you've heard it. Well, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any. And while I agree with that mostly in most circumstances, coming off of the DJ Lagway failed experiment, I just think it's good to have competition, to not have somebody be handed the job. Was Lagway handed the job? Well, after Graham Mertz left, yeah, he was. To the point where he could throw 1 billion interceptions and not get pulled from the game. Right? We saw that a couple of times. Now there is a full-blown competition. Now it's mano a mano, Philo versus Jones. Happy to see that. Also, John Summerall. You know, go back to the first year of Jim McElwain. What is that, 2015, roughly thereabouts? A decade ago, we'll call it a decade. And think about the last three coaches at Florida. McElwain, Mullen, Napier. Nothing against those guys personally. I sat here all last season and told you, Billy Napier is the guy I'd want to have a burger and a beer with and talk football. I just didn't want him being the coach at Florida anymore. McElwain, probably wouldn't say that about him, based on what I've been told about him. Mullen, I got no issue with either. I've met Dan Mullen a couple of times. It's nothing personal. I just, none of them were very good at their jobs when it comes to being the head coach of the University of Florida. I don't know if John Summerall on game day can coach his way out of a paper bag. I have no idea. When that ball is kicked off in September, they could have 37 guys on the field. They could commit 23 delay of games. They could have 18 illegal shifts. And we're going to be sitting here the Monday after that saying, oh my gosh, it's Billy Napier 2.0. I have no idea what's going to happen in September. But I can tell you what's happening right now. I can tell you what's happening now with John Summerall in the month of April. That dude is a beast on the recruiting trail. That guy's energy, his passion, all of that might be bigger than the three previous head coaches at Florida combined in McElwain, Mullen, and Napier. How you can look at John Summerall, his interaction with recruits on these videos, his press conferences, some of the things that he says, and not be excited as a Florida Gator fan, I don't know what to tell you. Which is pretty ironic and funny, seeing as how a lot of people that wear the orange and blue were pretty unhappy. We're pretty ticked when Summerall took the job because his name wasn't Lane Kiffin. Again, In sports radio, narratives change. We're the ultimate reality show. We go on what is happening right now. I could be sitting here in September and October, and I could be ripping John Summerall a new one. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? What are we doing? Maybe that will happen 5 or 6 months from now. Maybe it will. But I'll tell you what I'm doing tonight on Monday, April the 13th, when he's been on the job for what? 3 months? 3.5 months? How you cannot be anything but impressed with that guy, I don't know. I love what John Summerall has brought to the University of Florida. This is a team that in November, the excitement was nothing. Nothing. Here in April, getting a 5-star lineman for the first time since 2015, getting a 4-star quarterback, flipping a 4-star corner, keeping Jaden Woods, Miles Graham, Jaden Ball, Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, bringing in one of the top offensive minds in America and Buster Faulkner. Summerall keeps hitting home run after home run after home run. Will it matter come September? I hope so. Don't know that, but I hope so. But everything that we can go on, everything that we can analyze that John Summerall has done to this point, man, it's got me sold. 3.5 months in, got me sold. Hook, line, sinker. I am a John Summerall fan. Absolutely no doubt about that. I'm also a big fan of the NFL draft. Next week, ladies and gentlemen of Jaguar Nation. Are you getting excited? Now, without a first-round pick at least currently without a first-round pick, for the first time in franchise history, I know a lot of people were just kind of lukewarm on the draft, just kind of, we don't have a first-round pick. As we're getting closer, you begin to realize, well, 11 draft picks, that's tied for the second most. 4 of those picks inside the top 100. And a very heavy defensive class for Jacksonville, in my opinion. And why is that good? Because by all indications, and we're going to talk to Rick Saratella, All Access Football, he's also the guy that puts together the NFL Draft Bible. Year 24. Year 24 for the NFL Draft Bible. According to Rick Saratella, among many others we've had on here on Hacker After Dark, this is the year to need defense. Really good linebacker class, decent edge class, safety class. It's almost as if James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and Tony Boselli knew that this was going to be a good defensive class. It's almost as if maybe that's why they let Devin Lloyd and Greg Newsome and Dewey Wingard walk. Why they haven't re-signed Emmanuel Ogbah and Austin Johnson and DeJuan Smoot. It's almost as if that's why they wanted to accumulate picks in this draft, knowing they have needs on defense. You should get 4 players out of next week's draft, at least 4, that contribute in a big way in 2026. Your second rounder and your 3 third rounders should contribute. There's no doubt about that. When you're picking 4 times inside the top 100, you should get 4. I won't go as far as to say impact players, but you should get 4 contributors. And I think Jacksonville will get 4 contributors as we get closer to the draft. As it gets closer, when Roger Goodell is going to walk across that stage in Pittsburgh next Thursday and welcome all of us into the 2026 NFL Draft. Even though on that night, the Jaguars, as of now, don't have a first-round selection, the fact that they do have 4 picks on day 2 has me pretty excited to what James Gladstone, his staff, Cohen, Boselli, all of them, what they could potentially put together next week. Finding guys that'll help this football team build depth, raise the floor of the roster, but more so, make this football team better. I have no doubt that this football team will be better after the draft than they are now. 4 picks in the top 100 is nothing to sneeze at. Let's talk a little NFL draft. In fact, we're going to do a lot of it tonight. Justin Mello, NFL draft on Sports Illustrated. He comes up in the 9 o'clock hour. Coming up next, my buddy Rick Saratella, allaccessfootball.com. He is the guy that puts together the annual NFL Draft Bible. Let's talk positions of need. Let's talk Jaguar needs. Let's talk Jaguar draft outlook. The draft is next week. Let's get into it with Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible, allaccessfootball.com next on a Monday night here in Northeast Florida. We're with you till 10 o'clock, Jacksonville. We're glad you're with us on Hacker After Dark.
Streaming live from the XL Digital Studios. Polished by Harbor Dental Care, the locally owned smile restoration experts.
Awaken 180 weight loss. Awaken 180 weight loss. Hacker here for the best weight loss program that I've ever been on. You know, I got so many people are asking me, you know, Hacker, 100 pounds. How'd you do it? How'd you do it? And I said, well, look, there's ways to lose weight. You know, shots and medications. The problem with that is, at some point, the shots are going to go away. At some point, the medications are going to go away. They got you to lose the weight, then they're not going to send any more meds, any more shots. You're on your own. With Awaken 180, it doesn't work like that. You do it the natural way. You get the knowledge of why you are as heavy as you are, how you lost that weight, how you keep it off, and you also get coaching in the maintenance program. I still talk with coaches on a monthly basis from Awaken 180. They don't leave you. They're with you. This is a lifelong journey when you involve yourself with Awaken 180 weight loss. Do what I did. Do what Matt Hayes did. Do what so many of us at 1010XL have done. Go to awaken180weightloss.com. That's awaken180weightloss.com or call 844-346-1800 and get involved with Awaken 180 Weight Loss.
If you are an experienced electrician looking for your next big opportunity, look no further than the Miller Electric Company, a trusted name in the industry for over 96 years. At Miller Electric, we tackle the biggest projects in the city, offering you the chance to showcase your skills on a grand scale. We believe in rewarding hard work with the best pay, top-notch benefits, and an unbeatable culture where people actually care about each other. Take your career to new heights with Miller Electric Company. Apply today at millercareers.com. Miller Electric, an equal opportunity employer.
Jake from State Farm. I just beat my running PR, so I'm celebrating with the Banana Bonanza smoothie.
Hey, and you can keep celebrating when you create an affordable price just for you by bundling your home and auto with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. Go bananas.
I will. Hey, make it a large.
Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
The boys are back in the kitchen.
Don't start the barbecue without me.
Joe, Matt, and Leon give you plenty to chew on during lunchtime.
Freshly baked bread.
From the big #1 Duval Ford Studios.
Thank you for lunch, boys.
Noon to 2 weekdays on 1010XL.
This is Dr. Kevin Kaplan, team physician for your Jacksonville Jaguars. At Orthopedic Specialists of Jacksonville, we know not every injury happens on game day. Sometimes it's rolling your ankle, weekend yard work, or just playing catch with your kids. That's why we built a team of fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeons, experts in everything from knees and shoulders to spine and sports injuries in hand. Whether you're chasing championships or chasing your dog, we've got you. Learn more at osjax.com. That's osjax.com.
Get ready for spring turkey season at Green Acres Sporting Goods. Find shotguns trusted in the field from Browning, Beretta, and Benelli. Plus, the newest bows are ready to test shoot from Hoyt and Matthews. For over 55 years, Green Acres Sporting Goods has helped Northeast Florida hunters gear up with confidence. Stop by Green Acres today at the corner of Normandy and Hammond Boulevard or shop online anytime at greenacresporting.com.
Welcome to Key Buick GMC, proudly family-owned and operated since 1943. Come see why they're North Florida's new and pre-owned truck center, conveniently located on Southside and JTB, just minutes from the St. John's Town Center. At Key Buick GMC, every new vehicle comes with our lifetime powertrain warranty. Key Buick GMC, we are professional grade. Online at keybuickgmc.com. Lifetime powertrain warranty covers engine, transmission, drivetrain only. Exclusions apply. See dealer for details.
Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
Instant Keys saves the day if you have lost or broken keys. They can program new keys and remotes for nearly every make and model of vehicle at a fraction of the dealership cost. Fast, honest, and reliable locksmith service. Call 722-1111.
Instant Keys. Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you. 1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Focused, fueled, fearless, Farah. Here's another call on the 1010XL hotline, driven by Key Buick GMC, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
Back here on 1010XL at 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. And just like that, the NFL Draft is next week up in Pittsburgh, April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The Jaguars, for the first time in franchise history, at least as of right now, don't have a first-round pick. What they do have, though, are 11 picks overall, including 4 inside the top 100. Let's talk about the draft class. Let's talk about how free agency has shaped what the Jaguars will do next week in Pittsburgh with Rick Serritella. I've had Rick on for years. He of the NFL Draft Bible, also allaccess.com, All Access Football, and Rick's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Rick, it's been a little while, man. How are you?
Oh, Ryan, always a pleasure, man. You're my go-to source for Jaguars news, so always a pleasure chopping it up with you. And time for our annual get-together.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I want to dive into the Jaguars with you, but first and foremost, I just received a copy of the NFL Draft Bible. I say it every year. It is 330-plus pages of awesome information about this year's draft class. Tell us about this year's NFL Draft Bible and where people can go get it.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. It's a year-long process. We winded up with 567 scouting reports in this year's edition. It's our biggest, baddest, best one yet. My 24th year of putting out the NFL Draft Bible, and we're just looking forward to providing that to the masses. And you can go over to allaccessfootball.com, get your copy now. Also be live streaming all 3 days of the NFL Draft pick-by-pick analysis over on YouTube as well. And you know what? Jacksonville has a long wait as of now, but we've seen James Gladstone not afraid to move and shake come draft day. So maybe there's some plans to trade back up and get a higher pick, but we shall see. When you have top 100 picks, Ryan, those are still impact players and potential starters. So I think they have a chance here to really add to what good momentum they built off of in that first season under the new regime.
Again, allaccessfootball.com, the NFL Draft Bible. Rick Serritella with us here on 1010XL. All right, Rick, since we haven't talked since the season ended, let me just get an overview from you first and foremost about Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, their first year here in Jacksonville. What were your thoughts?
You know, I was overly impressed, Ryan, because I was one who was a little bit skeptical. You know, you get first-year GM, first-year head coach, both relatively young for the position. And so I thought there was some questions to be answered going into the season. And while it wasn't perfect, I think what you saw was just really a change of culture and how the team responded to a Liam Cohen. And I think these guys are learning on the job, which you know, gives them a little bit of runway here, but I think they'll be a lot more prepared heading into year 2. You know, obviously the Travis Hunter trade up was a little bit controversial, but I'm still a believer in that move. It might not have played out the way that fans had hoped or anticipated in year 1, but this is still a cornerstone player that I think you can build around. And again, I thought they exceeded expectations, and now going into year 2 of this Gladstone-Cohen combination, I mean, I think it's expected for them to be in the playoffs this year.
The discourse of the Travis Hunter situation, particularly this past weekend on social media, is really interesting. You got fantasy football guys that are up in arms that their guy they drafted in the top 5 is not going to be a full-time wide receiver. You got people on NFL Network saying things, quite frankly, Rick, that aren't true. I mean, he is going to play offense some of the time. He is going to be primarily on defense. And I think Travis Hunter himself had enough as he quote tweeted a couple of people saying, "Where did you guys hear this?" What do you make of that whole situation?
Yeah, listen, I think I was perplexed by the kind of strategy they implemented in terms of how they used the Travis Hunter. I think how they're going about it now, or what it sounds like, is he'll be primarily a defender with sub packages on offense. And I think that's truly the way to go. But for Travis, to me, I feel like he pays too much attention to the social media. And sometimes you got to let get your Twitter thumbs off of the phone and just worry on taking care of your business and worry about the task at hand and do your job. And I think, he's a young player. He's used to being the center of the spotlight. That'll all come with maturation and experience. But, Travis just needs to worry about taking care of business, getting healthy, and showing what he's capable of doing. And we all know he's a rare talent now. I do think that we're going to see some much better production this year. And again, I mean, you talk about foundational building blocks. He is certainly one.
Rick Saratella, allaccessfootball.com. The NFL Draft Bible 2026 is out. We will once again tell you how you can get your hands on that coming up in just a moment. Rick, final thought on Travis Hunter. He is going to be primarily a defensive back. What were your thoughts on him as a DB prospect last year? How good can he be?
I thought he had rare instincts. You talk about sticky coverage ability, just natural play feel, can flip the hips, smooth footwork, playmaker ability, can go up and climb the ladder, anticipate throws, jump the gun, create turnovers. I mean, he brings everything you want from the table. And I thought he was a rare cornerback prospect, which is why I was a little bit surprised that they tried him at wide receiver, it seemed like first, but I like what he brings at the cornerback position. I do believe he can be a top 5 caliber cornerback in the National Football League.
All right, Rick, let's dive into this year's draft class. It got framed from what happened in free agency. Let's begin there. ETN is gone. They still have Bashal Tutin, who they like. They have LaQuint Allen, who they like, and they brought in Chris Rodriguez. In your opinion, Rodriguez, Tutin, Allen, is that enough to replace ETN, or do they need to draft somebody next week?
No, I think that's an adequate backfield, right? You can carry that team into the playoff runs. And I take a look at what the New England Patriots did, who represented the AFC this past season. They did not have a stellar workhorse type of back. They had a 1-2 punch of Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, who aren't exactly world beaters, right? So when I look at the depth chart, and you bring in a guy like Chris Rodriguez, who I was very high on coming out of Kentucky, very tough, hard-nosed runner between the tackles guy who could grind it out and tote the rock for those hard yardage. And then Bashal Tutin, as you know, is a home run threat. So he's got breakaway, game-changing speed that teams have to worry about with the ball in his hands. And, I mean, this LaQuint Allen Jr. out of Syracuse, I thought he had a very impressive training camp. I liked what I saw. He's more of a developmental guy, but I think that you saw enough where you could feel comfortable now with a 3-man committee. You divvy up those 20, 25 carries a game. I think they can get by with what they have. At the same time, hey, it never hurts to increase the competition, add an additional body, and see if you can find a diamond in the rough. But I probably, due to the fact that they don't have a first-round selection, I'd probably wait and see who slides to me on day 3, just because I'd like to attack other areas of need. And you see it every year, Ryan. Like, you find running backs day 3. Look at Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt last season. You find guys undrafted. I think running back is the one position where you can kind of wait on and identify how a player fits your scheme. And that's one position also that doesn't require a lot of time in terms of transition into the next level.
Rick, similar question defensively. Devin Lloyd is now a Carolina Panther. Now, on the roster here, they have Ventrell Miller. They got Jack Kaiser coming into his second year. And they have a young man in Branson Combs who made the roster as an undrafted free agent. Do they have somebody on the roster to replace Devin Lloyd, in your opinion, or is that a position at linebacker they need to hit in either round 2 or round 3 next week?
No, I would definitely be looking to upgrade that position for sure. And luckily, the linebacker, to me, is, if not the deepest position, one of the deepest positions in this year's draft. And I think this is again, a position just like running back where teams typically tend to wait on pulling the trigger on the linebackers. Now, this year is a little bit of an anomaly with the two Ohio State linebackers who figure to go in the top 5. But after that, I think you can say, hey, let's take a wait and see approach. Does a guy like Jacob Rodriguez potentially slide down to the second round? How about Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh, who, some people think he could play safety. I like him at linebacker. He came in just at 6 foot. And both Rodriguez and Lewis have a knack for creating turnovers, whether it's interceptions, creating fumbles, recovering fumbles. There's something to be said for that. That usually translates to the next level. So I think you talk about being able to plug in and play off-ball linebacker. Guys like Anthony Hill Jr., who at one point had a lot of first-round love. He's now looking like a potential day 2 pick. And then the most fascinating player in the draft is probably Harold Perkins out of LSU, who I compare to a former Jaguar and Miles Jack. And you remember Miles Jack coming out of UCLA. I remember teams working him out at linebacker, at safety. Some people even thought he might even be able to play running back. And I think when you take a look at Harold Perkins from LSU, he has experience getting after the quarterback. He played off-ball linebacker. And, he could be used in a lot of different ways. You talk about a chess piece on the defensive side of the ball. He would add an intriguing dynamic to the Jaguars' defense.
Couple of more for Rick Saratella, the NFL Draft Bible. You can get it at allaccessfootball.com, and we'll tell you all about the NFL Draft Bible 2026 coming up here in just a moment. Rick, you've done this for a long time. When we look at James Gladstone and tendencies, we only have 1 year to go on, but we always look at where he came from. We look at what Les Snead does in L.A. How careful do you have to be about that? Well, Les Snead does it this way. That automatically means James Gladstone is going to do it that way. Is it okay to look at it that way, or is it more complicated than that?
Well, I think that when you take a look at executives who come from other organizations, they're always going to be influenced by mentors or individuals that they worked underneath from. And I think the best personnel, front office decision makers really just extract, a little bit from each guy. Now, coming over from the Rams organization, I think you have to kind of view it a little bit differently just because the Rams have been known to do things untraditionally. And the Jaguars have kind of followed suit and not really showing up at the combine, not really attacking the all-star circuit hard. The philosophy also leans more on breaking down game film rather than scouts traveling, overabundance on the road during the season. I think they rather just evaluate the film in-house and gather information that way. And I think also, like when you talk about the influx of AI and data analytics and some of the change of direction stats, I think teams such as the Jaguars now tend to lean more on some of the next-gen stats, right? So 40-yard dash is almost becoming a thing of the past, where teams like Jacksonville, they value miles per hour, in-game speed, the catapult technology. And I think those are kind of new wrinkles that have come into the evaluation process over the past 5 or 10 years.
Rick, as we begin to wrap up, you look at what James Gladstone may or may not do next week, and certainly interior defensive line looks to be a big need. Eric Armstead probably coming into his final year in Jacksonville. Devon Hamilton is scheduled to be a free agent after this season as well. Who knows what the future of Mason Smith is? He was a healthy scratch at the end of last year. So interior D-line appears to be a big one. And when it comes to local guys, Caleb Banks is a guy that I'm looking at because 2 months ago, the thought that he would get to 56 was a pipe dream. And maybe it still is. But that foot injury is maybe scaring some people off. And my question to you, if a guy like Banks falls to 56 with the foot concerns, is that still something you might do if you're Jacksonville?
Oh, I would be doing cartwheels up to that podium, Ryan, because you're getting a first-round talent, right? And so I think at a certain point, like if he slides to number 56, he no longer becomes a risk. It now becomes a value, right? And I think that's where you got to find the fine line, right, with Caleb Banks, because he is a first-round talent. He's a very dominant player. his combination of size and athleticism. I mean, I would compare him favorably to Deontay Walker, the rookie out of Kentucky for the Denver Broncos this past season, and what he did during his rookie campaign. So if you can plug and play a guy such as Banks up front along that defensive line, I mean, I think that's an impact game changer type of prospect that you really have to just kind of roll the dice and hold your breath, but bet on the upside when it comes to Caleb Banks. I'm a big fan, and of course, that injury does create some concerns, but you look at the overall player, and this guy arguably is a top 20 overall talent.
Rick, final question. You know, you look at the makeup of the Jaguar roster. It's not rocket science to look at it and say, all right, it's probably going to be a pretty heavy defensive class. Of the 11 picks, if they keep 11, my over-under is probably 7.5 are going to be on the defensive side of the ball. With that being said, how would you assess this year's defensive crop?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, the edge rushers are going to come off the board early and often. I think a lot of teams around the league are looking to upgrade their pass rush. And so I don't know how many of those guys will still be hanging out at pick number 56. At that point, you're looking at more of developmental or kind of rotational guys. Linebacker, we talked about, I think, is one of the deepest positions. Defensive tackle kind of falls off the cliff a little bit, and you can find some run stuffers. There's just not a whole heck of a lot of defensive tackles who can get after the quarterback. You mentioned Banks. I think Grayson Halton from Oklahoma could be another consideration at 56. He does bring some interior pass rush ability there. And then, you know, the cornerbacks, it's not top heavy, right? Like, you're not going to get a bona fide superstar like a Travis Hunter. I do like a Mansour Delaney as the top clear-cut cornerback. I think after that, you know, Chris Johnson from San Diego State, could he be a possibility in the second round? I have a first-round grade on him, but, you know, teams do tend to scout that helmet sticker, and that could come into play as well. But I think when you get into day 2, day 3 of the draft, you're looking at guys who could play the slot position more likely as opposed to the boundary spot. And then the safety, I think, is really, really deep. I think you're going to find impact safeties, potential starters well into early day 3. So that might be one area where Jacksonville can look at one of those 4 picks on day 2. Suddenly there might be a guy who slides there at the safety spot like a Banks who becomes a value pick.
Rick, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville, allaccessfootball.com, the NFL Draft Bible. You said it's your 24th year of putting this together. I just got my copy of it. It is absolutely outstanding. Tell people where they can get it, how they can get it, and what to expect when they get it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Ryan. And make sure you text me your address after this call because I'll send you out a hard copy this week. It is 567 scouting reports deep. About 250 players are going to get drafted. So it's your ultimate go-to guide, especially for day 3 of the draft. And then learning about these undrafted free agents. You know, each team brings in about 20 unsigned guys. So this is kind of your encyclopedia go-to source. And we ran it like an NFL front office department this year. I mean, we had scouts in every area of the region, weekly scouting calls dating back to this time last year, working towards putting together and assembling this year's product. So definitely, if you are a draftnik or you just want to learn about the players, not just the talent and evaluation, we have background reports, medical, character, verified measurements, projections, rankings, everything you could possibly want. We even got the international IPP players in there. And we also have a look ahead for the 2027 NFL draft, which that process is already underway. So we got the top 20 players at each position for the 2027 NFL draft. Never too early to get a jump start on next season, Ryan.
Rick Saratella, allaccessfootball.com, the NFL Draft Bible. Rick, really appreciate the time. I know you're very busy this time of year. Thank you, and let's do it again after the draft. We'll see how the Jaguars fared.
You got it, man. You're a stud. I really appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Catch the fever.
On the runway, I'm coming in hot.
1010 XL.
Rick Ballou here with a congratulations for John's Auto. They've been in business in Jacksonville for 40 years. That's right, going all the way back to 1985. Right now, they'd like to thank each and every one of you who's ever gotten their vehicle serviced at John's Auto. So, car, truck, or diesel, all makes, all models, whether it's a routine maintenance or a complete engine overhaul, go to John's Auto on Arlington Road, johnautomotivejacks.com.
You know what homeowners in Northeast Florida don't want to deal with? 3 phone calls in the same week. One because the drain won't drain, one because the septic system is acting up, and one because the AC decided summer vacation started early. That's why homeowners keep one number saved in their phone: Duck Duck Rooter Plumbing, Septic, and Air Conditioning. Clogged pipes, septic problem, AC blowing warm air. One call brings the right team to your door. Plumbing, septic, air conditioning, all handled by one trusted crew. Call 904-862-6769 or duckduckrooter.com.
Checkmate. I'm Brendan Cecilia, founder of Checkmate Coatings.
And I'm Chester, the Checkmate Chessman.
At most companies, people start on the ground floor and work their way up to the corner office. At Checkmate, I started on the ground floor, and almost 20 years in, that's still where I am, making ground floors look awesome, one garage at a time.
Well, I started as a pawn and worked my way up to king.
No, you didn't. Some guy drew you as a king. I asked them to give you a roller, so at least you'd look like one of the guys.
Yes, I rather would have preferred a sword.
At Checkmate, I work personally with our teams to perfect the preparation and application techniques that make Checkmate floors beautiful and durable.
And I keep things classy with my adorable accent.
Beautiful floors?
Check. Guaranteed to last?
Check. The finishing touch your home deserves? Checkmate.
Transforming your floors, making them great. Checkmate.
Visit checkmatecoatings.com.
It's Guggen time. You and a partner have a chance to play in this year's Coastal Equipment Guggen Open, April 27th at the Golf Club of Southampton. Text Guggen to 641-1010 to the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosures. Enjoy a cigar from Tobacco Cove. Check out the topdressing.com super vehicle. Get some great gold swag from liveforevergolf.com. Enjoy a Chick-fil-A breakfast and lunch from Dandy Foods, thanks to a head digital transformation and McGew Health and Wellness.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still, present, ready. Farah doesn't flinch. This is Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Yes, it is. Glad you're with us till 10 o'clock. Hacker After Dark, 1010XL, 92.5 FM. Thank you to Rick Saratella. He is the host, or I guess the guy that puts together the NFL Draft Bible, allaccessfootball.com. And we certainly appreciate Rick's perspective on the Jaguars. Next week's NFL Draft. And look, there's a lot of buzz growing about some guys that are falling, some guys that are rising. I'll tell you this, I'm concerned, I shouldn't say concerned, I'm more interested about a guy like Caleb Banks. And we've talked about him for a while now. You talk about a position of need for Jacksonville. If you talk about what 3 or 4 positions do the Jaguars need help in right now, there's not many, quite frankly. I like the makeup of this roster in a lot of different aspects. I think linebacker, they need maybe 1 or 2 more, certainly after the Devin Lloyd departure. I think tight end, they probably need somebody. I think edge, certainly behind Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker, they could use somebody. And then certainly interior defensive line. And if I was a betting man, I'm not most of the time, occasionally. But if I was on a more regular basis, I'd look at those first 4 picks in the top 100. The first 4 of the 11 picks the Jaguars have. In no particular order. I think linebacker is going to be addressed in those first 4 picks. I think interior defensive line is going to be addressed in those first 4 picks. I think tight end is going to be addressed in those first 4 picks. And then I'm torn between edge and corner. I think either or, edge or corner, will be the 4th of those 4 picks. And if they do that, if Jacksonville does that, man, I'm not going to be able to complain about anything. That is my dream scenario for the Jacksonville Jaguars next week in Pittsburgh. Again, no particular order. Tight end, interior D-line, linebacker, and then either corner or edge. I'm leaning edge, but I do think they're going to take another corner. I do think they will take a corner probably in one of the middle rounds. Back to Caleb Banks. You know, when you're picking 56th overall, if that is indeed where the Jaguars stay, and if that is indeed where Caleb Banks falls to, both have to happen. The Jaguars have to stay at 56 and not trade up or back, and Caleb Banks needs to be there at 56. That, to me, would be a fascinating scenario. Because at that point, the reason Caleb Banks would have fallen that far is teams are worried about that foot. Gator fans, you know about that foot for Caleb Banks. Kept him out, 9 games last year. He had the issue with it earlier in his college career. And he's got an issue with it again right now that he hurt it at the combine, so it's going to keep him out till reportedly June or July. That's 3 foot issues for a 6'5", 327-pound defensive tackle. But he's also a really, really good 6'5", 327-pound defensive tackle when he's healthy. And is Jacksonville good enough? Because you're not going to get him at 81. He's not going to fall that far. I don't know if he's going to fall to 56. But in our hypothetical, he does. Is Jacksonville good enough as a roster to take a chance at pick 56 on a guy that, if he stays healthy, is a top 20 talent in the draft? But you're also drafting a guy that's had 3 different foot issues in just a couple of years, and a guy that's 6'5" and 327 pounds. Is it worth the risk, and is Jacksonville's roster good enough to take that risk? Another question that needs to be answered is, how do the Jaguars feel about Ventrell Miller and Jack Kaiser and Branson Combs? The 3 linebackers here, obviously Foye is in the mix as well, but they got to find somebody to replace Devin Lloyd. Now, is Devin Lloyd's replacement on the roster already, or is he going to be drafted in Pittsburgh next week? Do the Jaguars have enough at corner? They re-signed Monteric Brown. We know Travis Hunter is going to play a lot of corner. Obviously, Jarian Jones, Jordan Lewis. But with the knowledge that Hunter and Lewis were on a surgery table within the last few months, Lewis with the foot, Hunter with the knee, do you feel confident in those guys being ready in August? Or do you need to draft somebody? I think you need to draft somebody. I've just spent 4 minutes talking about linebacker, interior defensive line, and corner. I think those 3 positions will absolutely be addressed at least once. I also think an edge will be drafted, maybe 2. And it would not shock me for the Jaguars to draft a safety. This reportedly, again, from guys I have on, draft analysts, they will tell you this is one of the best safety classes in quite some time. If I'm James Gladstone, if I'm the Jaguars, I hit them all. I draft an edge, I draft a D tackle, I draft a linebacker, I draft a corner, I draft a safety. And in some instances, I draft maybe more than one at certain positions. The Jaguar offense did not lose them the Buffalo game. The Jaguar defense lost that game. You need to upgrade the defense. And you lost arguably your best defensive player from last year in free agency, in Devin Lloyd. That's why, to me, outside of tight end, wide receiver, maybe another offensive lineman, if I keep 11 picks, if I'm James Gladstone and I keep 11 picks, I'm spending 7 or even 8 of those picks on defense. I am going heavy on defense next week in Pittsburgh. We'll see what the Jaguars do. We are 10 days away from round 1, 11 days away from Friday night, rounds 2 and 3, of which the Jaguars currently have 4 draft picks on day 2 of the draft. More on the Jaguars coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Justin Mello, NFL Draft on Sports Illustrated, will join us then. Coming up next, we'll get into a little bit of Florida talk, a little bit of recruiting talk. We're going to head to Gainesville in about 15 minutes or so. Tyler Harden of Swamp 247 to talk about the absolute heater that John Sumrall is on the recruiting trail right now. But there are very few times in life as a sports fan when I'm neither mad or depressed. I was neither last night when it came to the Orlando Magic. I was flat out embarrassed to be an Orlando Magic fan. We'll talk about it next here on Hacker After Dark.
From the first play ball to the final, your home for play-by-play is 1010XL.
I'm a Greg from Cycles of Jacksonville, and Triumph is a known name when it comes to beautiful rides on the road. What is the latest from Triumph?
Well, if you didn't come, we had an unleashing at the dealership last week. We saw 6 new models from Triumph, anything from 400 cc's to 1200 cc's. If you're looking at a bike, you got to look at the new Triumph.
Experienced riders will love it.
And the inexperienced will love it. We've got something for everybody in the Triumph lineup. Great, great motorcycles.
Showroom waiting for you. Triumph. Find them at Cycles of Jacksonville on Atlantic near Regency.
I'm here with Danny Van Sickle, Director of the Electrical Training Alliance. Danny, tell me about your program.
Hey, Rick. We're a 4-year electrical apprenticeship. Our students start out making over $40,000 a year, and right now make over $90,000 a year, including benefits. There is no tuition or student debt. You just have to apply and get accepted.
Did you say no tuition and no student debt?
You heard that right, Rick. Once you're accepted to the program, your only cost for the books and the course fees. About $800 a year.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity. How can I learn more?
Just go to etajax.org and you can apply there.
Apply by May 14th.
Make more birdies with pointers from the pros on Brunch with the Tour with Dan Hicken and Jeff Prosser.
Tour news, tips, and inside info.
Teed up on Clearwater Irrigation and North Florida Medical Centers. Tuesday morning at 8:30.
Credit card interest rates are now over 29%. Most people are only making the minimum payments, so they're getting nowhere. Hey, Prosser here, but here's what many homeowners don't realize. Using the equity in your home, you can easily access hundreds of thousands in cash. With Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan, you can pay off your credit card, your existing HELOC, your car loans, or get money for that home improvement project. One client just got $100,000 approved and saved over $1,500 a month. Here's the best part. With Loan Pronto, you can do it all from your phone. With zero out-of-pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn-out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. Rates are at a near 3-year low. Act now. Go to loanpronto.com. See how much you can get in about 60 seconds. Loan Pronto, 2,800 5-star Google reviews. Call 904-999-1508 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Jacksonville is the flip side of Florida. And inside the flip side, the action never stops. If you're tired of hearing about the best games after the final whistle, don't get left on the sidelines. Whether it's a unique sporting event you've never seen, a weekend with the family, or a winning date night, Visit Jacksonville is your ultimate playbook. Get in the game. Head to visitjacksonville.com/locals or download the Visit Jacks app today and see everything coming in 2026. Jacksonville. Experience the flip side.
And that concludes the Joe C. Jack of All Trades show. Tune in next week where I'll be installing my own French drain.
Joe, wake up, man.
Hey, John, I must have dozed off.
We finished those projects you started.
Whoa, my seamless gutters are actually seamless.
And they're connected into underground PVC drain lines.
And my sprinklers. Wow, look at that coverage.
Next time, just call me first, Joe.
I will, but I ain't singing that song.
Clearwater Irrigation
and drainage too.
Frank Frangie here for Coil Fencing. Since 1927, Jacksonville has trusted Coil Fencing to protect what matters. And I trust them too. From tough chain link to your commercial project to sleek aluminum fencing your HOA will love, Coil does it all. Did you know that Coil can also install, service, and maintain those automatic gates that help protect your neighborhood or business? To schedule a complimentary consultation, visit Visit CoilJacks.com. That's COYLE Jacks.com. Coil Fencing, A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Brown Family YMCA in Ponte Vedra Beach is better than ever. Come experience our new renovated spaces, including an expanded wellness center with upgraded state-of-the-art equipment, recovery solutions, brand new locker rooms, and the Horseville Center for Health and Well-Being, all designed to help you feel your best. And now you can join with no joining fee. Plus, enjoy your 4th month free. There's no place like this place. And you'll love what's new. Visit the Brown Family YMCA in Ponte Vedra Beach.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When it's game time, Farah doesn't flinch. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Approaching halftime, Hacker After Dark, 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. We'll take you up till 10 o'clock, as we do every night right here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. All right, so I'm not going to bore you if you're a non-NBA fan with my just horrific evening when it came to my Orlando Magic last night, but I'm going to speak to you as a sports fan to fan. Yeah, I do a radio show. I've been lucky enough to be on the radio here in Jacksonville for a long time, but I'm still a fan, right, of teams. And I am a fan of the Orlando Magic. I never hide that fact. And so last night, Orlando's playing a game in which they need to win for seeding. Is it the end of the world that they lost? No, because they're probably not going to go very far in the playoffs anyway, but they're playing Boston last night, and Boston's resting like their top 6 guys. Literally, nobody's playing. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, you name it. None of their guys are playing. In fact, they're in street clothes, hanging out on the sideline. You got cats out there that I've heard of, but let's be honest, it was the Celtics G League team. Most of these guys had spent more time in Maine playing for the Celtics G League team during the year than they had spent in a Boston Celtic uniform. And by the way, Orlando played all of our guys. All of our guys were out there playing. And Boston was up 16 in the 4th quarter. Their 3rd string G League guys were beating our starters. That is the equivalent of an NFL game in which the practice squad, the special teams guys, and maybe a couple of situational personnel are beating another team's starters. That is what it was last night. I've never, and I'm serious about this. You know, we talk about recency bias and we're creatures of the moment, and maybe I am. You know what? Maybe there was one instance in 1999 that I'm overlooking, or maybe there was a situation for Orlando in 2011 that's, you know, slipped my mind. But I was thinking about this a lot last night. I don't think I've ever been more embarrassed to be an Orlando Magic fan. Last night was a flipping disaster. You want to know why Boston is where they are and why Orlando is where they are? Just look at what happened last night. The G League Boston Celtics outplayed, outcoached, outperformed an Orlando roster that has hundreds of millions of dollars playing out there. It was so bad and so ridiculous that Orlando played Desmond Bane the first 6 minutes, then gave him the rest of the game off, thinking they were going to just walk over this Boston team until they realized, holy crap, we're getting beat pretty bad. Let's put Desmond Bane back in the game in the 4th quarter. At that point, it was too late. As embarrassed as I've ever been to be an Orlando Magic fan. Will I get over it? Yeah, I probably will. Am I still going to be a fan of theirs? Yeah, I'm dumb enough to still be. 36 years, hasn't wisened me up at all. But that was so unforgivable last night. Why I support a team that could do that and just lay over and die against a bunch of third stringers in a game Boston didn't even need, mind you. Orlando needed it. I thought Brian Windhorst on ESPN said it great today. So I'm stealing his line. You want to know why Boston is where they are and why Orlando is where they are? Just look at what happened last night. And I'm just curious, you as a sports fan, have you ever not even been mad or sad with your team? Have you ever just been embarrassed? Just embarrassed. It's embarrassing to call yourself a fan. That's how I feel right now. That all could change on Wednesday if Orlando goes to Philly and wins, but for the here and now, it was just nauseating. Sports is great, man, when times are good, but when something like that happens last night, you look at yourself and you're like, why do I do this? Why have I been here for 36 years supporting this? Why am I stupid enough to continue to get my hopes up only to have this happen? Oh, pathetic. I'll tell you what wasn't pathetic and what's not pathetic are the Florida Gators in the recruiting game right now. John Summerall is in his element, man. He's done work on the recruiting trail. Why is Florida so hot in recruiting? Also recapping the orange and blue game. Tyler Harden is the main recruiting analyst for Swamp 247 down in Gainesville. He joins us next on a Monday night in Northeast Florida. It's Hacker After Dark.
Get more Jaguars coverage from Jacksonville's sports superstation.
That is, Jags on 3, baby. 1, 2, 3, Jags!
1010XL, 92.5 FM.
Hey, it's Matt Hayes. Tell me if this is you, because it's definitely me. I go to bed thinking, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up early, jump in that ice bath I just bought, have a good breakfast, go for a morning walk, and order a veggie for my side instead of fries. Then the morning arrives. I press snooze, skip everything else I planned because I'll do it tomorrow. But that's the Awaken 180 difference. Tomorrow is today. It's so easy. You want to do it. Your coach will be there to help you do it. You won't want to let her down. Accountability, ease, feeling great. That's the Awaken 180 difference. Now you can download an app, Google a weight loss plan, or buy the latest gadget. But who actually helps you follow through when you couldn't do it before? I lost 40 pounds with Awaken 180, and it was easy. No meds. I couldn't lose 5 pounds in a month on my own. Awaken 180 works, and it continues to work because it's set up to not let you fail. Succeed like we did at Awaken180weightloss.com.
Hello, all you Jacksonville sports fans. Don here from Taco Lou. If you're in the mood for some great tacos, cold Dos Equis, maybe even a sip of some fine tequila, then the Lou is calling your name. Come out to Jack's Beach and experience what many have dubbed the #1 taco in the 904. There are plenty of great taco joints in town, and we're proud to have been around for this long, and we have only you, the fine people of Jacksonville, to thank for helping us grow and become who we are today. Cheers to you, Jacksonville, and thank you from the Lou crew. Taco Lou in Jacksonville Beach.
Get out of the city and into the woods and the water.
I keep on working it.
On the Nimnit Outdoors Show, Captain Kevin and Captain Kirk join Jeff Lageman.
I am shooting one today.
Get hooked Saturday morning from 7 to 10 on 1010XL.
Big Brothers Big Sisters is teaming up with the NFL to inspire change. From now to draft day, Big Brothers Big Sisters is following the NFL draft, aiming to recruit potential bigs. Hi, I'm Brent from the 1010 sales team. I'm committed as a mentor, and we need you to step up and become a mentor too. There's a waiting list of more than 50 children hoping for a mentor. It's just a few hours a month. Be a mentor, become a big. Visit bbsnefl.org. Be a mentor or visit Big Brothers Big Sisters and click on Big Draft.
The flagship station of the Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
After attending a Saturday Bumps and Bruises clinic by Southeast orthopedic specialist, my son's hip and shoulder issues were diagnosed quickly, and he's back playing. As a busy family, we really appreciate their prompt attention.
I've been having knee problems for probably 6 months, and I had heard about Southeast Orthopedics on the radio, and I gave them a call. They got me right in. Dr. Kevin Murphy did it. It was painless, and it's been doing fantastic.
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
Longer days, warmer nights, and a backyard that brings everyone together. Spring and summer in Florida means pool days, backyard barbecues, and night swims under the stars. Picket here for nearly 50 years, Surfside Pools have been creating the backdrops for life's best memories. From weekly service and repairs to remodels, commercial maintenance, and new pool construction, Surfside does it all. Ready to float happy? SurfsidePools.net or call 904-246-2666. Surfside Pools, summer starts here. License number CPC 044080.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Focused, fueled, fearless, Farah. Here's another call on the 1010XL hotline, driven by Key Buick GMC, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. Spring football for the Florida Gators wrapped up this past weekend with the orange and blue game. The football game, there was a lot of talking points coming out of, but one of the main talking points is the recruiting trail for Jon Sumrall, a 5-star offensive lineman, a 4-star quarterback, and a 4-star defensive back, all within the last week, have committed for the class of 2027. What is going on in Gainesville? They are hot, and will they remain hot? One of the guys that follows recruiting as well as anybody in Gainesville is Tyler Harden of 24/7 Sports, Swamp 247, and Tyler is always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Tyler, how you doing?
Ryan, I appreciate you having me on. I'm doing well.
Tyler, thank you so much for the time. All right, you do this every day. Why is Jon Sumrall hitting his stride right now? They're red hot on the recruiting trail.
Well, when it comes to building a class, pretty much all three of the guys he just landed last week are guys that you build your class around, right? A 5-star offensive lineman, the first time Florida's landed a 5-star offensive lineman in over a decade. It really doesn't get much better than that when it comes to building a class around a player. And Maxwell Hiller is a guy that will work on building the class around him. He's already been recruiting other offensive linemen to join him in Gainesville. So talent speaks for itself, but just the personality you're getting with him as well, a guy that wants the best for Florida's 2027 class, and he's wasted no time in making those efforts. And 4-star quarterback Gavin Davidson, you could say the same exact thing. Not only is he the quarterback of the class, it's kind of the unsaid leader, I guess you could say, but he's already been recruiting. I mean, at the orange and blue spring game on Saturday, just 2 days after he committed, he's already recruiting guys. He was talking to 4-star wide receiver Elias Pearl, who Florida's all over. And, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the picture of him and 5-star defensive lineman Jalen Brewster. He was over there talking with him and giving him his pitch on Florida and why Florida is a place to be. So, this is a group that Jon Sumrall landed this past weekend that are going to go out. They're going to recruit guys in order to build this class up, but they're also players that you could build a class around.
I want to talk about Sumrall more in a moment, but let's spend a moment on Phil Trautwein, the former Gator offensive lineman back in Gainesville as part of Sumrall's staff. And the Maxwell Hiller thing from the state of Pennsylvania, you mentioned a 5-star. The last 5-star signee for Florida was Martez Ivey in 2015. Is that a direct correlation with Phil Trautwein? Why is that relationship so strong there?
Yeah, I mean, number one player in the state of Pennsylvania in the 2027 class. And, Phil Trautwein, of course, coming from Penn State. Max Hiller was his guy for a very long time. The two have known each other since Max was in 8th grade. So this is a relationship that is as strong as, you could only hope for in any recruitment, right? When it comes to when Trautwein made the move to Florida, Florida didn't really have much of a presence in Hiller's recruitment with the previous staff. But when Trautwein made the move over to Gainesville, that completely changed. And Florida automatically became the program to watch, just because Hiller has that type of trust with Trautwein. So when it comes to the relationship they had and how much of a factor that played in his decision, it was immense and it was a game changer.
Tyler Harden, 24/7 Sports, Swamp 247, with us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. I want to get to Davin Davidson in a moment, but I want to talk about Summerall for a second. There was a video right when Summerall got the job, like a month after, one of his first recruits celebrating with him at a basketball game when the young man committed. This was back probably in January or February. And we saw a similar video after the Orange and Blue game when the corner flipped from South Carolina to Florida. He tells Summerall in I guess the locker room area of the Swamp that he's committing. And Summerall and him have an embrace like Florida fans haven't seen in a long, long time. You want to talk about a passionate dude. You want to talk about a guy that gets his players. Look, we are so far removed from Jim McElwain and Dan Mullen and Billy Napier. It's ridiculous, the difference in demeanor between those three guys and what the Gators are getting with John Summerall.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to an energy level, right? I mean, you obviously see it in those two videos. He picked Amari Fountain up off the ground. He's a 6'3" corner, so that's not exactly the easiest thing to do in the world, but like the energy is so there. And like you said, you know, I talk to recruits on a daily basis. I do it for a living. I can confidently say that probably 97% of recruits I talk to about John Summerall have brought up his energy in some shape, way, or form. This is the energy that John Summerall has been truly an X factor on the recruiting trail, and it's only going to continue to do so in my mind.
You're around that program every day. I made this point last week leading into the spring game. John Summerall's biggest problem with Gator fans was that his name wasn't Lane Kiffin when he was hired. Ever since that opening press conference, I mean, obviously wins and losses, Tyler, won't start mattering until September, and ultimately that's all that does matter. But for the here and now until September, it's just what has he done? What has he said? How does the program feel? What's the excitement level like? And my goodness, man, I don't know how you couldn't be anything but ecstatic if you're a Gator fan based on what John Summerall's done in the first 3.5 months.
Yeah, I think something that's come up with John Summerall that I haven't heard about really any staff in quite some time, it was with a 4-star. And it was more like, if you want to come to Florida, that's great, and we would love to have you. But if not, we have other guys that would fill your spot. That authenticity is something like I haven't heard in a very long time, right? And he was very authentic and he was very genuine at that opening press conference. Like you said, he said, hey, I know I'm not Lane Kiffin, right? I know you guys wanted Lane Kiffin, but I'm going to give you all I got. I'm going to give you what I have, and I know that's a lot. Right. And he's only shown that up to this point. He's definitely put his money where his mouth is, especially on the recruiting trail. And, you know, there's a lot for Gator fans to be excited about with John Summerall.
We mentioned Hiller, the 5-star lineman out of Pennsylvania. We mentioned Fountain, the corner that flipped from South Carolina. Now let's get to Davin Davidson. He led Cardinal Mooney to a state championship in December. He commits to Florida. I believe Georgia was in play there, Auburn, Kentucky as well. What are the Gators getting in Davin Davidson?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that pops out on paper is his size. He's 6'6.5", 215 pounds. He looks exactly the part. Honestly, he might be taller than 6'6.5" from my perspective. But, you know, this is a guy, you know, every pass he throws comes with a little bit of hot sauce. And, you know, that kind of comes with a baseball background that he has. But, you know, extremely, you know, good in, you know, the check down areas, but he also has a good deep ball that might catch some people by surprise. And, you know, just overall athleticism at his size is definitely above average. So, you know, you're kind of getting the full package with Davin Davidson with the size that's more than ideal. So there's a lot of, you know, to be excited about with Gator fans and Davidson.
Building a program takes a long time, Tyler. You know that. You cover this team every day on the recruiting trail. I'll say this, there was times in the recent memory where if a Gator quarterback got hurt, they were in deep, deep trouble because there was nobody else. This year, you got Aaron Philo battling with Tramel Jones. You got a 4-star freshman in Will Griffin that people are pretty excited about. Now, all of a sudden, you have another 4-star in the pipeline that's already committed for next year. Slowly but surely, very quickly in his tenure, Summerall's starting to build some depth.
Yeah, and you can even go further than that. I mean, Florida's in an excellent position with four-star quarterback in the 2028 class, Kingston Preer out of Alabama. I mean, Florida's been his number one for a little while now. So when it comes to just the long-term perspective that John Sumrall has with the quarterback room, like you said, four-star quarterback Will Griffin might not see the reps this season, but that might change a season later. So it's always kind of a season later perspective or 2 seasons later on where, John Sumrall is thinking. And when it comes to Davin Davidson, just people around him and even maybe him himself, they're not expecting him to be, a plug and play guy. That's a guy that's going to be a development piece. He's going to be a development project, but man, there's a lot of potential with him. So the long-term aspect of building up that quarterback room is something that John Sumrall and his staff have really kind of, done better than a lot of, staffs can expect.
Final moments, Tyler Harden, 24/7 Sports, Swamp 247. I want to end, Tyler, with a thought on some of the freshmen in 2026 that you were covering in the recruiting trail last year. Before we do that, you mentioned Brewster, the 5-star defensive tackle. Look, that appears to be Texas Tech, right? And people say, well, Texas Tech, what do you mean? Well, that's NIL, man. That's oil money. I mean, that's the thought on him. But I've seen some reports that Florida might be Texas Tech's biggest challenger for him.
Yeah, I mean, if you had told me that 2 months before, I would have said, no way, right? And that's, one of the biggest areas that Florida, this staff has really kind of proven me wrong in, is just they swing for the fences, and their success rate is, especially with them not having coached a legitimate game as a group yet, it's so surprising. The guys they're getting on campus, the guys they have a real shot with guys like Brewster, it's definitely what Florida fans have been longing for God knows how long, right? And just with Brewster himself, he keeps his recruitment very close to the vest. I talked with him after the Orange and Blue game on Saturday. There's a lot for him to like about Florida, whether it's his relationship with Gerald Chapman, defensive line coach, or just the consistency that the staff has shown him in recruiting. There's a lot to like with Florida, but this is a recruitment that's going to be moved by NIL and revenue sharing, and who can kind of put the best package forward. So Florida, like you said, Texas Tech is a competitive program when it comes to the NIL path, but Florida's definitely going to have it cut out for them if, when it comes down to NIL, because it's going to at some point if it hasn't already.
It's not rocket science to understand why Texas A&M, and now Texas Tech all of a sudden are in the mix for all these kids in the land of NIL. All right, final question about the 27 class. Any commitments coming down the pipe? I mean, I know that a lot of these kids like to get this done before their senior year starts so they can enjoy their senior football season, which starts in August. We're in April now. What should Gator fans be on the lookout for in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I mean, things change on a dime in this industry. Things change on a dime and almost all recruitments at this point in time, right? When it comes to where I think the Florida class is looking up are 2 position groups, the wide receiver room and the defensive line room. Some guys to watch out for in the receiver room, 4-star wide receiver Elias Pearl. He's an in-state kid, along with another wide receiver out of South Florida, Anthony Jennings out of Fort Lauderdale. And then we're going to go up to South Carolina with Amari Patterson, 4-star out of South Carolina. So the receiver room is definitely building itself up. They're getting a lot of numbers there. They have they have a good shot with a lot of numbers to build up that room. And then you go over to the defensive line, another in-state target, 2 in-state targets, actually, Tyler Alexander out of Palm Beach and Steve Bentley Kamaji Andui out of Coral Gables. He's originally from England. Florida's positioned themselves very well with both of those guys. So those are just a few names to look out for in the near future for Florida's 27 class.
Tyler, leave us with this. Last year, you were covering the 26 class. Now, to John Sumrall's credit, he basically kept almost all of those guys after Billy Napier's firing. Who are you most excited about? Who showed out at the Orange and Blue game? Who should Gator fans be on the lookout for as far as true freshmen in the 26 season?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard question to answer because I feel like this 2026 class for Florida has a lot of potential. But one guy that really catches my eye and just how, Jaden Woods was used as a true freshman, I would say KJ Ford. Coming off the edge, I think there's a lot of room for him to kind of get some significant playing time as a true freshman. I mean, just how Jaden Woods panned out as a true freshman. I think, this staff, although it was a different staff when Jaden Woods was a true freshman, if it ain't broke, don't fix it at a certain point. KJ Ford could be a guy that can come in and make an impact, learn from guys like LJ McCray and Jaden Woods, but really get some playing time for himself at times and really kind of show some upside. So that's a name that I think, may not be brought up as much as guys like Davian Gross or CJ Brona, the higher ranked guys in the class, although KJ was still a 4-star top 100 guy. The path for him to get on the field as a freshman isn't the easiest, but I think he'll still see some good playing time this year.
Tyler, as we head into the summer and certainly fall camp, how much of a battle is it at quarterback? Did Tramel Jones make it complicated for the coaching staff against Aaron Philo?
I think he did. 100%. I think he did. And when it comes to just the familiarity, like Aaron Philo, of course, has familiarity with Buster Faulkner and the offensive schemes that he comes in with. But Tramel Jones, when it just comes to familiarity with a place, that's something that almost can't really be taught right away. And I think Tramel Jones really showed he was comfortable in the swamp and just around the program and just really kind of just played at ease, right? There wasn't really much to prove. He just kind of went into his bag and said, hey, this is what I got. I'm putting my best foot forward in this competition. And I think he really did make it interesting this past weekend.
Tyler, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville about your recruiting coverage on Swamp 247 and what you'll have on the website in the coming weeks.
Yeah, you can follow me over at Swamp 24/7 over at 24/7 Sports. That's our Florida site for the 24/7 Sports Network. You can follow me on Twitter at TTJ Harden, Harden, and the number 8 after that. And on Instagram at Tyler Harden 24/7. Lots of recruiting coverage over the next few months, especially as official visits get closer and closer. But I'm excited. I'm ready to go, and I hope Florida fans are as well.
Tyler, it was a very busy weekend for you. Thank you for taking time for us here in Jacksonville, and we'll talk soon, pal.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Tailgating around the clock.
Either way, we ought to have a lot of fun, huh?
Sports are made for celebrating. With 1010XL.
Hey, Hicken here. I couldn't be any happier than to join the George Moore Chevrolet family. When I say family, I mean it. Visit their beautiful showroom today off Atlantic Boulevard. Find out exactly what I'm talking about. No pressure, just friendly help. And whether you want a car, a truck, SUV, electric, pre-owned, you name it, George Moore Chevrolet has it. If you can't make it over to Atlantic Boulevard, no problem. MooreChevy.com is easy to navigate as any site you will try. It's never been more easy to use. George Moore Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Jake from State Farm. I just beat my running PR, so I'm celebrating with the Banana Bonanza smoothie.
Hey, and you can keep celebrating when you create an affordable price just for you by bundling your home and auto with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. Go bananas.
I will. Hey, make it a large.
Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Catch Gators baseball all season long on 1010XL. Pitched by the personal injury attorneys of Farah and Farah, Randy Marion Cadillac of Jacksonville, and Renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors. 1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still, present, ready. Farah doesn't flinch. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Thank you to Tyler Harden, 24/7 Sports, Swamp 247, for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. As, John Summerall and the Gators wrapping up spring football and got 3 commitments for the 2027 class within the last 5 days, including the best interior offensive lineman in America in 5-star offensive lineman Maxwell Hiller. More on the Gators coming up later on this week. But the NFL Draft gets back to our focus right now. It is next week up in Pittsburgh. a guy that if you follow him on social media, well, he's been on top of a lot. He'll tell you who the Jaguars are meeting with at the Combine, the Senior Bowl, virtual visits. Justin Mello does a terrific job covering the NFL Draft. I've had Justin on for years. He's now with Sports Illustrated, the NFL Draft on SI. That's a Sports Illustrated page. And he joins us next. Jaguar Draft Outlook, 10 days out. Justin Mello of Sports Illustrated joins me next on a Monday night here in Northeast Florida. We're with you till 10 o'clock, Jacksonville. We're glad you're with us. It's Hacker After Dark.
No static ever. Download the free 1010XL app for Apple and Android devices and take us with you wherever you go. 1010XL. Live streaming from the XL Digital Studios. Brightened by Harbor Dental Care, Jacksonville's first choice for dental emergencies.
Hello, all you Jacksonville sports fans. Don here from Taco Lou. If you're in the mood for some great tacos, cold Dos Equis, maybe even a sip of some fine tequila, then the Lou is calling your name. Come out to Jack's Beach and experience what many have dubbed the #1 taco in the 904. There are plenty of great taco joints in town, and we're proud to have been around for this long, and we have only you, the fine people of Jacksonville, to thank for helping us grow and become who we are today. Cheers to you, Jacksonville, and thank you from the Lou crew. Taco Lou in Jacksonville Beach.
Owning a house is kind of like being in an argument with your house. One day, it's the AC saying, I'm tired. The next day, it's the plumbing going, good luck finding that leak. Then the septic system joins the conversation. And nobody likes what it has to say. That's when you call Duck Duck Rooter Plumbing, Septic, and Air Conditioning. One team that handles all three, plumbing, septic, and air conditioning. So the next time your house tries to win the argument, call Duck Duck Rooter. 904-862-6769 or duckduckrooter.com.
Checkmate. I'm Brendan Cecilia, founder of Checkmate Coatings.
And I'm Chester, the Checkmate Chessman.
At most companies, people start on the ground floor and work their way up to the corner office. At Checkmate, I started on the ground floor, and almost 20 years in, that's still where I am, making ground floors look awesome, one garage at a time.
Well, I started as a pawn and worked my way up to king.
No, you didn't. Some guy drew you as a king. I asked them to give you a roller, so at least you look like one of the guys.
Yes, I rather would have preferred a sword.
At Checkmate, I work personally with our teams to perfect the preparation and application techniques that make Checkmate floors beautiful and durable.
And I keep things classy with my adorable accent.
Beautiful floors?
Check. Guaranteed to last?
Check. The finishing touch your home deserves? Checkmate.
Transforming your floors, making them great. Checkmate.
Visit checkmatecoatings.com.
Get a healthy start in 2026. The Florida Department of Health in Duval County is here to help you get healthy and stay healthy all year long. Our dedicated team is committed to providing high-quality care and trusted public health services for our community. Our mission is simple: to protect, promote, and improve the health of you and your family. Learn more about our programs and services by visiting duval.floridahealth.gov.
Hi, I'm Sean Monahan from Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach. Since 1977, we've been Jacksonville's local family jeweler with a beautiful selection of fine jewelry and certified diamonds. But we're also Jacksonville's leading buyer of gold, silver, and diamonds from the public. Gold has recently hit an all-time high at over $5,000 per ounce, and silver is over $100 per ounce. Pay bills, buy something fun. Now is the time to sell your gold and silver for cash and get top dollar, or trade it in for a new piece and get even more at Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach.
Hey, Jacksonville DDH. Dreamfinders Danny Hicken here with the scoop from Dreamfinders Homes, your national builder of the year. We've got first-year interest rates as low as 2.99% in homes in 20-plus communities throughout Northeast Florida. If you're house hunting, make sure your first pick Dreamfinders Homes, the proud official home builder of the PGA Tour, the Florida Gators, and your Jacksonville Jaguars. Visit dfhsalesevent.com today and tell them Dreamfinders Danny sent you.
Don't miss Renewal by Anderson's 1 month only sale event. Buy one replacement window or door and get the second 40% off. Plus, enjoy 0 down, no payments, and 0 interest for 12 months. It's the perfect time to upgrade with windows engineered for strength, beauty, and energy-efficient performance. Designed for Florida's unique climate, our acclaimed Impact windows help keep your home cooler, quieter, and more comfortable. Offer ends April 30th. Restrictions apply. Schedule your free consultation at bestwindowsflorida.com. License CGC 1527613.
injury.
1010XL, presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. When it's game time, Farah doesn't flinch. Now, the Monahan's golden moment. Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach, your local family jewelers.
Back here on 1010XL at 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville, we are glad you are with us. We are less than 2 weeks away from the NFL Draft up in Pittsburgh, April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The Jaguars do not have a first-round pick. What they do have are 11 draft picks total, including 4 that will be made inside the top 100. Let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about how free agency has probably framed what the Jaguars are going to have to accomplish up in Pittsburgh. And let's do it with one of our main draft guys. He's been so for years, Justin Mello. He's now with the NFL Draft on SI, a Sports Illustrated channel. And Justin's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Justin, congratulations to the move to Sports Illustrated, man. That's awesome.
I appreciate the kind words. Been having a lot of fun, covering the NFL Draft for them on this dedicated draft space. We're officially under 2 weeks away from the 2026 NFL Draft, so it's an exciting world in my universe.
Yeah, for those people that follow Justin on social media, he's got a ton of updates, a ton of Jaguar stuff. This guy, that guy visiting Jacksonville, he's been on top of it when it comes to the Jaguars. Justin, you and I haven't spoke since the offseason began, which obviously means free agency. And here in Jacksonville, there were certainly more departures than there were arrivals. I do want to ask you about the one arrival, though, and that's Chris Rodriguez. Still a relatively young guy. Had that 1 year with Liam Cohen at Kentucky. He's coming off a 500-yard campaign last year in Washington. What do you make of Rodriguez, LeQuint Allen Jr., and, of course, Bashal Tutin now in the Jaguar backfield trying to replace Travis Etienne?
Yeah, it really feels like they're going to take a running back by committee approach, this coming season. I'd expect all 3 of those guys to play. Not sure, Tutin might be the guy, but not sure any of them, quite have the upside of a Travis Etienne, which is why I think, they'll kind of ride the hot hand and allow all 3 of those players an opportunity. You love the fact that Chris Rodriguez, has the familiarity with Liam Cohen from their time together in Kentucky. That should allow him to sort of, pick up the playbook quickly, understand the scheme, do a really high-level job of executing the concepts, that Liam Cohen features in his run game. I think Chris Rodriguez is a very reliable, sort of high floor physical running back. I don't think he's ever going to be a 25 carry type of game player due to a lack of, top tier high end athleticism, but he's a good football player. Again, one that is going to acclimate quickly to his new surroundings due to the familiarity with the coaching staff. And when you look at the overall running back room as a whole, I kind of appreciate that they're not going to lean on any one of those 3 guys too heavily. I think Bashal Tutin, I think LeQuint Allen, and Chris Rodriguez will all get their carries. Expect all 3 to be active on game day, based on how this room is shaping up as of now. And I think they could have a very effective rotation of backs, this coming season. Chris Rodriguez was a good get to ensure that they at least raise the floor of this room. He'll be the most veteran guy in that room. And he knows Liam Cohen well. So I expect pretty good results from Jacksonville's running back room in 2026.
And to me, Justin, bringing in Chris Rodriguez, I don't know if they draft somebody. As you said, I think Allen, Tutin, and Rodriguez are all going to be active on game day. So if you use a draft pick on a guy, you're going to plan on drafting 4 running backs. maybe in the late rounds, but do you see Jacksonville being in the running back market in the draft in 2 weeks?
I agree with you. I don't necessarily see the point of them drafting a running back when they've already got 3 that they're probably planning to have active on game days. And that third back, usually your third back is more of a special teams guy. In this room, certainly they'll have to play special teams, but I think there's a chance that all 3 running backs could see action on offense, on any given Sunday. So for me, I think they go into the NFL draft with flexibility, right? Like if they've got a home run grade on a prospect, a value guy in a late round they can't believe is available, I don't think this running back room is quite good enough to, at least on paper, to prevent you from drafting that guy. but you've certainly got the flexibility required to say, we don't need to draft a running back. If it's not a dream-like scenario, we don't need to force anything at the position. I think it's very likely that they move forward with the 3 guys who are already on the roster.
Justin Mello with us, NFL Draft on SI. That's a Sports Illustrated channel, and Justin's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. On the defensive side of the ball, Justin, Devin Lloyd is now a Carolina Panther. Now, Ventrell Miller is here, Jack Kaiser is here, and the Jaguars keep talking about Branson Combs, the undrafted free agent from a year ago. Those are the 3 in-house guys. There's also a lot of talk that Jacksonville could be in the linebacker market in the draft and maybe round 2 or certainly round 3. With what's on the roster and what might be available to them on day 2, in your opinion, what's the best way to go about replacing Devin Lloyd?
I think linebacker is the biggest need, on this roster heading into the NFL draft. And I anticipate that they are going to use their first pick, which of course is in the 2nd round, on a linebacker. You talk about that linebacker room right now. I think we'd all agree that that's a below average room, right? It's the biggest need on the roster. They were not able to keep Devin Lloyd, nor were they able to adequately replace him in free agency. So I'm assuming that they're earmarking the draft. GM James Gladstone will be heading into the draft knowing he needs to draft a plug-and-play linebacker, someone who could start in week 1, And that tells me that they're not going to wait around. I think their first pick will be at linebacker. And where they're, of course they don't have the first-round pick, but I do think where they are choosing in the 2nd round, they'll probably be able to get a pretty good linebacker. I don't think we're going to see many of them in the 1st round at all. In fact, it wouldn't shock me, if Sonny Styles is the only pure off-ball linebacker taken in round 1. That leaves a possibility. You got a guy like Georgia C.J. Allen, who was once viewed as a surefire first-round pick. I'm not sure that's, currently the case after he was been nursing a pre-draft injury that limited his participation in this process. I really like Jake Golday out of Cincinnati. We can talk more about him if you'd like to expand, but that's a really intriguing 2nd-round prospect. And then, of course, I think everyone's favorite in Jacksonville right now is probably Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas A&M, right? Like, probably the safest plug-and-play quote-unquote 2nd-round linebacker in this draft. 260 tackles over these past 2 years, high-level linebacker, ready to play right away. I also like Anthony Hill, out of Texas. I think there's a bit more projection with him. He's a little more raw compared to someone like Jacob Rodriguez, but he's also really long, big, physical, and rangy. I think there's a lot of upside there. So between those 4 linebackers, I imagine Jacksonville will have at least 1 or 2 really good options when they make their first pick in the 2nd round.
Yeah, it's curious you say those guys because I agree with you. You see a lot of mock drafts. You talk to a lot of people. Anthony Hill always comes up with the Jaguars. Jacob Rodriguez always comes up with the Jaguars. Golday. And then I hear a lot of Trotter from Missouri, Jeremiah's son. What's your thought on him?
Yeah, I think I'd probably have him 5th in that pecking order. I thought he put some good stuff on tape for the Tigers this year. You appreciate that he's played and competed in the SEC, very athletic as well. I think you could, it's easy to tell that there are NFL bloodlines there. I've got more of a 3rd-round grade on him personally. So if Jacksonville maybe doesn't want to address linebacker in the 2nd round with one of those 4 names I mentioned, for whatever reason, they just can't pass up a defensive tackle or whatever, whatever's on the board there for them in the 2nd round, they just feel like there's a can't-miss prospect at an alternative position. Than someone like Josiah Trotter. I think that could make a lot of sense maybe in the 3rd round.
If not linebacker, you just mentioned it, interior defensive line. You look at the future for Jacksonville, odds are this is Armstead's final year. Devon Hamilton is set to become a free agent after this year. Mason Smith, quite frankly, who even knows if he's going to be on the roster in 2026. So there certainly does appear to be need at interior D-line. The name Grayson Halton of Oklahoma comes up a bunch in conversation with Jacksonville. I want to ask you about a couple of local guys in a moment, but what is your thought on Halton out of OU?
Yeah, I've been a big fan of him throughout this process. Now, he's a little undersized, but that leads to a lot of initial, first-step quickness. He's very explosive. He tends to win the leverage battle a lot on tape, which I appreciate at his size. He was really, really good at the Senior Bowl. In fact, I'd call him borderline unblockable based on what he did in Mobile. And we know, that environment tends to favor, defensive linemen, one-on-one pass rushing drills with the linemen, with the O-linemen, that is. But I thought Grayson Halton did, what he could at the Senior Bowl to the best of his ability. And then he went to the NFL Combine, and he put forth a really athletic display there as well. I mean, I love watching this kid on tape. I love watching him compete. He's physical for his size, even though he doesn't quite, meet certain thresholds. But he's really explosive. I think his number one selling point is the get off, the explosiveness, the first step quickness, that initial, athleticism he's able to generate right off the snap. I'm a huge, huge fan of Grayson Halton. I've sort of been operating under the assumption that he's more of a third-round pick, but I also would not be shocked if he's kind of worked his way into that second-round conversation. He's had a really, really good pre-draft process.
Couple more for Justin Mello, NFL Draft on SI, a Sports Illustrated channel. He's with us here on 1010XL. All right, Justin, the two local interior D linemen. I agree that Darrell Jackson might be more of a third-round guy out of Florida State. Let's begin there. Just a quick thought from you. People I talk to, some really like him. Some are very lukewarm on him. Where do you stand with Darrell Jackson?
Yeah, I thought the tape was a little hot and cold this past year, a little inconsistent. I think that's one of the things that teams and scouts are working through. What kind of version of Darrell Jackson are we going to get at the next level? Of course, there's a bit of a local connection, having played at Florida State. I'm sure Jacksonville, their scouting staff, will know him very, very well heading into this draft. But yeah, I thought the tape was a little lukewarm. There was flashes of real high-level play, and then I thought there were stretches where you expected and wanted a lot more from him. I believe he was at East West Shrine Bowl, it was, and he was so good out there that he got a late call-up to the Senior Bowl. So he was at multiple, pre-draft all-star showcases, and he looked really good at both of them. It was sort of the word on him. So really interesting player. I agree. Certainly probably more of a third-round guy. But definitely one of those, if they go linebacker in the second round like we're talking, then they might have to consider their, interior D-line options. They may have to be a third-round guy. And certainly I think Darrell Jackson would be one of those, short-listed options in that range.
2 months ago, Justin, there wasn't a chance Caleb Banks would make it to 56. And I don't know if he will now or not either. But that foot is a concern for teams. It's like the second or third issue with that foot. And for a 6'5", 327-pound defensive tackle, that tends to get people's attention when you talk about foot issues. If Caleb Banks falls to 56, considering the foot issue, is that still worth Jacksonville taking a chance on?
It'd be hard to pass. They're certainly in the market for an athletic interior D lineman in this draft. And you're right. His projections are all over the place right now. Like, the tape at Florida this year, kind of similar, was hot and cold. When he's on, he looks like he could be one of the most dominant defensive tackles in football. He really is that good when he's at his best, but he's also not at his best consistently enough. Again, there were a lot of flashes at Florida, a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of nagging injuries as well that not only sidelined him, but also kind of limited his play and production, when he was asked to play through things. The whole Caleb Banks experience, I think, was seen at the NFL Combine. He gets there, he measures in, he's got freak measurements, he puts up some initial, eye-opening testing results, and then he suffers the foot injury while doing it, and now he's sidelined. That's sort of been the Caleb Banks experience. It seems like something really good happens, but then something bad happens that, kind of prevents him from being able to sustain the momentum that he's building for himself. High risk, high reward type of prospect. I don't know that there's going to be an in-between. I tend to say this with these types of prospects. I'll be very surprised if Caleb Banks settles in as a mid-range, okay NFL player. It's probably either going to go very poorly or it's going to be the steal of the draft and you're going to get yourself, a Pro Bowl D lineman in the second round, for example. So I think the range of outcomes is wide, from one end of the spectrum to the other on Caleb Banks. But it's easy to see why when you watch the tape, that size, speed, athletic profile, that rare blend of size and athleticism, really explains why he might be such a coveted prospect despite some of the concern.
Justin, final question. We got 90 seconds. The Jaguars have 11 picks. I think based on the way the roster looks, one would tend to believe it's going to be a heavy defensive draft for Jacksonville. We talked about linebacker. We talked about interior defensive line. What about the overall defensive class? How would you assess it here in 2026?
I think it lacks a little, top-end talent. There might not be an Aiden Hutchinson or a Myles Garrett or a Bosa brother at the top of this draft, but I do like the depth. I think this is one of the best linebacker classes I've seen in a long time, which is, of course, great news for Jacksonville. I think it's a really good deep safety class as well. There will be, mid and late round options that'll be able to contribute right away. Same thing with the corners. I don't think there's a lot of high-end talent at corner. There's a little bit, but not a ton. But then there's some really interesting late-round options, at cornerback as well. The Toledo kids, Avery Smith, Andre Fuller. I like the kid out of Oregon a lot, Jaden Kanadi. So there's some really interesting mid- and late-round options at almost every position, but especially strong at linebacker, and that's really good news for James Gladstone.
Justin, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville about your new venture. You're over there with the NFL Draft on SI. That's a Sports Illustrated channel. Tell people where and when they can find your work.
Follow me on Twitter /X at JustinM_NFL. I am reporting, as you mentioned, on a ton of Jacksonville Jaguars visits, pre-draft visits, Zoom interviews, pro day, face-to-face private workouts, and all that. I've got a ton of that info up right now on my Twitter and on NFL Draft on SI, a Sports Illustrated website.
He's one of our favorites, Justin Mello. Justin, it's your time of year. I know you're very busy. Thank you for taking time out for us, and let's reconnect after the draft. We'll see how the Jaguars fared. And thank you to Justin Mello, NFL Draft on SI, for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. Justin's been one of my main NFL Draft guys for a long, long time. He does, well, quite frankly, a terrific job this time of year with interviews and information as far as top 30 visits, which teams are meeting with whom. And if you follow him on social media, you'll know pretty quick who the Jaguars are meeting with at the Combine, the Senior Bowl, things along those lines. And look, we did a deep dive into the draft. The draft is next week, next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday up in Pittsburgh. The Jaguars, 11 picks overall, 4 inside the top 100, as I've said for a while, and I'm not breaking any news here. I think it is the common thought that it's going to be a very heavy defensive draft for Jacksonville. So we did a deep dive on the defensive class for this draft class when it comes to the Jaguars, and we certainly appreciate Justin for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. We also spent some time on the Florida Gators as John Sumrall wrapped up his first spring this past Saturday with the Orange and Blue game. But one of the big stories that has come out of Gainesville in the last couple of days is Florida's red hot on the recruiting trail, man. Getting a 5-star offensive lineman. Now, he has to sign. Maxwell Hiller from Pennsylvania, he's committed. He hasn't signed. If he does ultimately sign, it'll be the first 5-star O-lineman that Florida has gotten since Martez Ivey all the way back in 2015. They also got a commit from a 4-star quarterback in David Davidson of Cardinal Mooney down in South Florida, a 4-star corner in Amari Fountain who flipped from South Carolina. So it has been a red-hot recruiting streak for Florida as they wrapped up spring football with the Orange and Blue game. And, look, going into the summer months and certainly when fall camp starts, how much of a quarterback competition will there be? I think a lot of people in Gainesville will tell you that it probably is Aaron Philo's job, but Tramel Jones might have complicated that a little bit as we head into the summer months. So that will just about do it, man. Very, very busy Monday night edition of Hacker After Dark. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM, and we have a ton of people to thank. Again, Justin Mello, NFL Draft on SI. Certainly thank you to Justin. Thank you to Tyler Harden of 24/7 Sports, Swamp 247, for talking about Florida's red-hot recruiting weekend. And back in hour number 1, my buddy Rick Saratella of AllAccessFootball.com and the NFL Draft Bible. It is available now. It is the 24th NFL Draft Bible put out by Rick Saratella and the good folks at All Access Football. And we certainly appreciate Rick taking time out for us to talk Jaguars and draft here on Hacker After Dark. Now, we will be back tomorrow night on a Tuesday, and we're doing a little double duty. Both tomorrow and Wednesday, I will still be with you from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock but I'll also be joining Frank Frangie on the Frangie Show from 4 to 6 as Hayes Carline is on vacation the rest of the week. So I'll be with you 4 to 6 tomorrow on the Frangie Show, and then right back here from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock for a Tuesday night edition of Hacker After Dark. Aaron Williams was your producer tonight. Aaron, great job as always. I'm the Hacker Ryan Green. And again, Jacksonville, thank you for spending part of your Monday evening with us right here on Hacker After Dark, on 1010XL, and on 92.5 FM. So for all of us here on HAD, have a terrific remainder of your Monday evening, and we will talk to you again tomorrow night right here on Hacker After Dark beginning at 8 o'clock, and also alongside Frank Frangie on the Frangie Show from 4 until 6. Until then, good night, Jacksonville.
What do you think Dan